Business, Workforce, and Post-Secondary Education, Jesse Saglio. Are we ready to report out? That's good. That is very good. And Doris, thank you for your assistance in that section. Why don't you go ahead and get started as you recruit? Mr. Saglio, you're up.
All right. I take this off like chat. All right. So we heard a bunch of really good ideas. Thematically, not surprisingly, in Westerly, kind of suburban marketplace, we heard a lot about mixed use as a tool for revitalization, right? So Route 1 makes its way down through Westerly, and it's, a lot of it is old strip malls and sort of tired old concepts. It appears we're hearing from a lot of people that support for mixed-use development, community building, creating neighborhoods rather than curb cuts, one very important theme. And I think what you see also when you have an historic Main Street downtown like we're standing on right now, and the success that breeds and the community it breeds, extending that further out into these suburban towns is something that I think a lot of people were very supportive of. So that's probably the theme number one. Theme number two was continued connection between our universities and institutions with the business community. That's obviously something, Stefan, we've spent a lot of time on and always can do more. We have incredible institutions that support R&D, which is another small business growth driver. So we heard a lot about that. More resources to create those connections, support those connections, and help people with interesting, great ideas drive growth and innovation. Then on workforce, we heard resources for, how do we want to say, I'm gonna call on you. Why don't you talk about resources?
Resources, Rhode Island's a great place to live and work, and recruiting people into the state should be something that we should be able to do from out of the state, and providing funding from the state to help small and medium-sized businesses or nonprofits to really encourage them to have healthy organizations and be able to commit the time to supporting their staff and be able to have, it sounds like a hooey thing, but like happy employees stay longer. You don't have to hire new people because they are retained. And so solving some of the problems by really looking at healthcare right now is tough. A lot of people are leaving and a lot of people will continue to leave it. And whether you're talking about my passion, which is around behavioral health care, or across the board, healthcare employs 11% of the workforce in Rhode Island. So if we can keep more of those people in those jobs, we'll have to hire fewer and we can support the growth of all sorts of other things.
Perfect.
Great. Terrific. What a productive session. Thank you very much. Topic area 2 is housing. James Comer, Deputy Director, Rhode Island Housing. Please report out with Tori and your group.
Hi, how are we doing? We had a really robust group, which is not surprising. Housing does not inspire passivity in a lot of people, which is great. It's part of the reason why I love working in that community. So there are a number of things. Obviously, with winter encroaching, there was a lot of conversation about how do we serve the homeless population in the state. It's an increasing problem. It's something that's been in the news quite a bit lately with winter coming on. And certainly there are a number of issues that folks felt very passionate about. One of which was the conversation we are having about what to do with state property. There was obviously a journal article today talking about the former group homes and how they're being repurposed, and what can we do to prevent that from happening again, to be used for homeless services, for permanent supportive housing, or for transitional housing? How do we ensure that the state will give the right of first refusal to Rhode Island Housing or another organization to repurpose those for housing that will serve not only the homeless community, but the local community in which it's based? There was a discussion about, certainly folks in underserved populations, not just homeless individuals, but folks with behavioral health issues, with developmental disabilities, with mental health issues that require not only good housing, but housing with quality supportive services. And there's a dearth of those housing units out there. It's something that as a sector we need to look at and say, how can we make that happen? There was also a lot of conversation both about housing and homelessness, and that not to necessarily conflate the two, because while they're inextricably commingled issues, and that housing, we know that quality housing is the cure for homelessness. But they do require very individualized approaches to deal with the particular issues of each. And certain aspects of affordable housing development don't necessarily always dovetail with the priorities of the homeless advocacy community. How can we work better to align those two things and have a vibrant conversation between the housing developers and the homeless advocates to understand each other better and work better towards a common solution? So I thought that was really, really important. We talked just a little bit more about, what can local organizations such as, point the finger at Russ Partridge and the Warm Shelter that are strapped for resources, how can they participate in maintaining housing in their community, securing housing in their community? What resources are available to them, even to collaborate with other like-minded organizations to ensure that valuable resources in their communities are not lost or do not go away because of the inflated real estate market, and because, as we all know who work in real estate, nothing stays on the market for more than a day or two before it gets snapped up for a top quality price. That's not something that, local community-based organizations can compete with. It's not something, frankly, that, a lot of affordable housing developers can compete with, and it's something that, the market is driving things right now. There's overheated demand and a lack of supply. How do we address that so that, Russ down here in Westerly and in the communities he works in is not forced to confront more people on the street this year than he had last year? The governor did a great job last week announcing $5 million for the winter shelter stuff. How do we make sure that we have places to put those beds, that there are adequate shelters for the shelter dollars to be deployed in? I think these are all, obviously the stuff about winter shelter is an imminent need. It's urgent, it's pressing, and it's happening right now. There's a longer term issue that I think we've had, I talk with the folks at Commerce every day about this. We talk about it constantly at Rhode Island Housing with our partners in the service provider community, in the affordable housing community, of how do we do more with less? And, for the first time in 25 years of me doing this, we are in a position where we might be able to do more with a little bit more. We have the opportunity with the governor's down payment proposal to start a foothold on how we can better address these long-term issues. We have the opportunity with the ARPA money that's out there that we'll be seeing shortly, with an increased federal commitment to affordable housing, to do more with more. And I think the conversations I had here today with folks, the people who come out to Westerly on a Tuesday night, the people who are going to come out to Central Falls next week and have been throughout this process, show that it's not just those of us who are practitioners who are interested in this stuff, it's people who live in each city and town in Rhode Island. And I think it's been really helpful to me to hear the folks tonight. I hear their frustration, but I hear their hope. And I think that, the outcomes we're seeing from these conversations are really important, because as practitioners, we get caught up in how do we do this? Why do we do this? What are the things that we've always done? And we don't often get a chance to come out and talk to the people and say, what do you guys want us to do? What do you think is the most pressing need in your community?
And James Comer, thank you very much for personally being here too. It makes a big difference. You had a long day of heavy work.
Yeah, it's all right.
And your participation is extremely valuable.
Carnival hook for me.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Great productive session in Topic Area 2. Topic Area 3, Commissioner Teig, Public Health and Wellness, Children, Families, and Early Education, and of course K-12 education as well. Commissioner.
Great. Thanks so much, Secretary Pryor. So across these three areas of children, families, and early ed, K-12 ed, and public health and wellness, what really struck me in the really broad-ranging conversation we had tonight that I'm really, really grateful for, so thank you for all of you who participated, is really just right back to our last topic, was the importance of housing, and housing as an enabling factor for health outcomes, for educational outcomes. So that really came through consistently across all three of the areas that we discussed here tonight. Specific to each of the areas, in children and families and early ed, a couple of things really rose to the top, and that was first and foremost universal access to pre-K on a reliable basis, and secondly, having affordable access to childcare for families. Not only because of the outcomes that enables for the actual children and the family, but also because of the ability it leads to having parents have a chance to work and being able to be supportive of that. In K-12 education, a couple things that really stood out there as well were the fact that People really believe that having universal after-school programs and greater investment at the state level in after-school and statewide programs, as well as statewide curriculum, was incredibly important. And then finally, in public health and wellness, in addition to the housing issue, and that we know that housing is probably the most significant social determinant of health, of your actual health outcomes, and finding ways to leverage the healthcare system to add to the investments that we can make in affordable housing. We really heard again that addressing our mental health crisis here in the state, particularly through enhancing the behavioral health provider workforce, was incredibly important. And then finally, from a pure public health perspective, thinking about how we can address and enhance not only violence more broadly, but gun violence in particular. So a really robust and wide-ranging conversation, and I think it gives us a great starting point to really move forward on this in an accelerated fashion. Thanks so much.
Well done, Commissioner. And thank you for your poise under pressure as well. Well done. All right, Directors Gray and Alviti.
Okay.
Transportation and climate.
Well, we'll do it in the reverse order.
Yes,
I'm going to
please.
start off with a real quick summary of some of the ideas we got on responding to climate change. Starting off was really to look at more climate-friendly transportation. And Director Alviti and I have been working on that and looking at different opportunities to really promote clean transportation and environmentally responsible transportation. So that'll be a continuing challenge for us. We want to raise awareness of the impacts on climate change. So we'll definitely be spreading the word and educating a lot of people about how important climate change really is. And then there was a lot of discussion also about really working with our partners, especially our partners at the conservation districts and land trusts across the state, to really kind of leverage our abilities and strengths to make a lot of good things happen. Finally, not really related to climate change, but sort of aligned with it, is as we're working on climate issues, don't forget about the other environmental issues that we have. So the pollution control, the beaches, the parks, the fisheries, the management areas that we're responsible for, to really keep looking at that, in particular to focus on compliance and make sure that people are doing the right thing that protects our environment and protects our health across the state. So with that, there you go, sir.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to move over here to make it easier. With age comes wisdom, huh? So the infrastructure and transportation, you can imagine we had a number of some very lively discussions about differences in opinion on how we go about planning and executing transportation in the state, all the way down to very local levels in terms of the grass and the maintenance of and appearance of local roadways here in Westerly. Important issues to you all that we hear that will certainly make part of our planning going forward and part of the 2030 plan is transportation improvements generally in South County. More transit, better access to it. Think about seniors. Seniors mobility is an important factor in our plans going forward, and making that connection for seniors to be able to have better connections, more frequent, less expensive, and more convenient connections to transportation. Clean up graffiti and electrical boxes on the nearby highway. That's very local. So we get a big range in transportation. Improve bike infrastructure. Support green infrastructure, including rebuilding roads and bridges sustainably. Improve bus service to the South County. And some issues with regard to homelessness that occur along our highways, and how to better provide for some of the homeless people that are using our transportation infrastructure, frankly, for shelter, and trying to work with other state agencies to better provide housing. So I think there's more, but that about sums it up.
Well done. Directors, thank you both. Really appreciate it. These have really been substantive conversations. Thank you very, very much in each corner of the room. Director Thorson, government and other subjects as well.
Thank you, Stefan, and it's great to be here in Westerly where there's such a festive atmosphere. And, you know, one of the beauties of coming to sessions like this is you really do get personal stories that are very relevant and touching, and this tonight was no exception, so I wanted to thank the people that I spoke with. And really what it's about is bureaucratic red tape and cutting through that, and accountability and being able to find the answer for things like, why does it take 6 months for me to get my nursing license? Why is my son staying in a hospital at $1,400 a day when he could be released? These are very relevant questions. And if we're going to take responsibility, we have to take all of the responsibility all the way through to make sure that we see things through and are responsive. And we can't be responsive if we don't have our arms around what it is we've got. And so when I said it takes a week to find out how many employees we have, I was not exaggerating. But we were able to have some very productive conversations about purchasing and why it takes so long for vendors to get paid, providers to get paid. These are folks who are providing services to the state who basically are waiting to be paid. So we need to figure that out. And we also talked about dedicated resources for things like after-school programs, for things like STEM and dedicated funding, particularly for people who really need it. So that's most of us, actually. But and then community engagement and volunteerism. I might let everybody know that the state has quite a few boards and commissions that take volunteers with talents to apply those talents. So I would encourage you to investigate those. They are listed on the Secretary of State's website in terms of what there are, and you can contact the governor's office because the governor's office is responsible for filling most of those seats. So if you are interested in public service and have a particular talent to lend, we would love to have you. And as far as all other topics, it related to senior citizens being a vulnerable population and that needs to be addressed in our plan. As well as funding for nonprofits, specifically seniors, increase funding for nonprofits, and not to think of Westerly as an afterthought for bus service to the beaches. This is a beautiful town. And I've ridden my bike from Woonsocket to Napatree Point 4 times, and I've loved it, and I love this town. And finally, just to prove that everybody gets a chance to speak their mind, the last comment was COVID vax mandates are a violation of our constitutional rights. Why are you enforcing them? So everybody gets an opinion, and we respect everybody coming here and offer our heartfelt thanks for your participation tonight. And Stefan, back to you.
Thank you, Director. What a great set of sessions. Really appreciate it. Now that we're back together and we've heard the report outs and you've had the chance in each corner of the room to offer your opinions, want to see if there is a point that you'd like to make that was not yet made in the report outs. So that's what we'll do now. Is there a show of hands of anyone who would like to say something beyond what's already been said this evening? 1, 2, 3. Very good. We would welcome your opinions. We're going to allow for the mic to be right up there. And you're first, sir. And then you, sir, you're next. Yeah. You're welcome to. And then back in that corner.
Thanks.
Please go right ahead.
I'm Eric Hirsch, professor at Providence College. I oversee the Homeless Management Information System, and I'm the Housing and Homelessness Policy Chair for Homes RI as well. We're all getting extremely frustrated because we don't understand how it can be that we had 642 people. This is not a snapshot. That's over the month of October. 642 people spent at least one night in a place not meant for human habitation. That includes 51 families at least. And we don't know if we've actually contacted everyone because we have a small number of outreach workers, some of whom are here tonight. We just don't get how other people don't see the urgency of this. Yes, you release some money, then there's a long bureaucratic process of trying to get that money out. The nonprofits, trust me, the nonprofits are completely overwhelmed. Talk to Russ, who's head of WARM. Talk to Laura Jaworski right there, who's head of House of Hope. Our outreach workers are sobbing on calls because when they go out there, the people who are living outside say to them, "What are you doing here? You can't offer me anything. We can't offer them a shelter bed. We can't offer them housing." We need a state of emergency to be declared by the governor. If a Republican in Massachusetts can do it, why can't this governor? I don't understand why he hasn't. We asked for a task force to be formed back in May and didn't hear back until October. You know, why hasn't a task force been formed? The nonprofits cannot do it by themselves. They can't find sites for these shelter beds. They get snapped out from under them by for-profit developers. As was in the Journal today, they're auctioned off by the state instead of being used for shelter or housing. It's not only the shelter, it's housing. We need at least 500 permanent supportive housing beds. That would go for like $200 or $250 a month with subsidies and supportive services so those people can stay in them. I don't know what we have to do. We'll have to figure out what to do next if people continue to just see this as not a big deal. People are going to die. It was 25 degrees last weekend. You know, we have kids outside living in their cars. Don't you get it?
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your comments, and if we have both James Comer and Mike Tondra with us this evening, if you'd like to continue the conversation after this session. Yes, sir.
How you doing? My name is Paul Rihanna, and I was a mental health worker at Fatima Hospital, and I lost my job to the vaccine mandates. Right now, on my unit at Fatima Hospital, there's 2 CNAs, 2 nurses, and 40 patients. I have the report on my phone, I can show it. Now, everyone says vaccine mandates. I heard someone say, boo. These people out here lost their jobs, have to worry about paying their rent, their mortgage, feeding their families. Now, we may not condone their actions, but their actions is a cry for help. They want to get back to work. They want to serve the patients they were serving 20 months ago before there was a vaccine even out there. They were working with proper PPE, proper gowns, and some of them stood there the whole 20 months without hazard pay, and they took on all the risk. And now, no money, no job, unemployment's being denied, all because they made a personal health choice. It's my body, my choice for abortions. It should be my body, my choice for vaccinations. No double standards. It's not right how people go about things. Like I said, is it the right way to go about it? Probably not, but their voices is being heard. Everyone's hearing what they have to say, and they're fighting for their cause. November 5th, we had a town hall meeting with all nurses and healthcare workers. We invited the governor and everybody else, every senator, every housing rep, everyone you can think of, we invited, and no one showed up. 5 empty chairs, and no one heard our cause, and we still went about it. We recorded it. If everyone wants to see it, it's on my Facebook. You can look up Paul Rihanna. And these nurses were crying. How am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to support my kids? No one should have to go through that or be forced to take a vaccine to worry about where their next meal is going to come from. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your comments. I believe there was one more. Mr. Pat Ford?
Sure. Pat Ford, Coalition Radio Network. I guess this is what passes as a press session as well. And again, thank you for having this forum tonight. My question is actually generated toward the gentleman from Rhode Island Housing. And really, there's a lesson in this for all the departments. Tonight, you appeared before us and somewhat with a straight face talked about all the amazing things that Rhode Island Housing is going to do. But when we look at something like RA rent relief, Rhode Island Housing has abdicated its responsibility. It's done an atrocious job. And as a result, both young landlords around the state, many of whom have 1, 2, or fewer properties, tenants across the state have continued to suffer because of the inadequacy of your department's performance. And I have to, as I project around the room to the gentleman who's in charge of Rhode Commerce Corp, a great way to mitigate the damage done to the Rhode Island economy during COVID would have been allowed to give the small businesses that we all cater to, because we all know they're the backbone of the Rhode Island economy, maybe it would have been to allow them to stay open at the same rate that you and your government allowed big box stores to stand up for. All right? It's tough to listen to conversations tonight when the overall performance of Rhode Island government is so poor. Our education system is one of the worst in the nation, yet we spend incredible amounts of money on it. And yet we're all willing to listen and pontificate and have pie charts and audio-visual aids. How about this? Let's all take a pledge in this room, everyone, including me. Let's do a better job for Rhode Islanders now, and then maybe in 2030, we won't have small business collapses because of a failed government policy. We won't have landlords, very many of them BIPOC, from the BIPOC community, losing their buildings, for many of whom were the first step up in the economic ladder in the United States because of incompetency, despite incredibly highly paid competence. The executive director of your organization makes nearly $200,000 a year. Do you think during any of the minority events on the West End that they could have shown up with more than 2 or 3 people? I don't know. Maybe she could have shown up. We are surrounded by institutional failure in this state. It's time we stop the pontificating and hold all of these folks for accountability right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Floyd. I think, did I miss one in the corner here who had raised his or her hand? Yes, please go right ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. My name is Andrew Fiore. I'm a reporter for the Good 5 Cent Cigar. That's URI's student paper. And I'd just like to say, obviously a lot of college students are having a hard time right now. If you're going to graduate this year, you're facing a daunting job environment, and the housing prices are, of course, high. What in the document should URI students know about that'll make them feel more optimistic about their future, whether it's a freshman just starting out like me or a senior who's going out into the real world now?
Yep. I'll give you a quick response. This is not a Q&A with press right now. This is an open comment session for participants, so maybe we can catch a minute afterwards. But I would say if you're concerned about housing pricing, I would especially look at the section on housing. And we have a couple of housing officials who are here today who may be able to talk with you as well. It's a profoundly important question, and we want to make sure that URI graduates stay in Rhode Island, contribute to the economy, and help to participate in our community. So very, very good question. So thank you for being here, and we can maybe connect you with some of our housing officials right afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if there was one more, even though we were closing up, I think it's appropriate if everyone doesn't mind for even one more. I would love it. Please.
Sorry, everybody. I know you all want to go home. Thank you so much for having this session. This is great to see everybody out here being great citizens. I just wanted to say something that I didn't see, and if it was up there, I apologize, but my father is going through a lot right now. I'm not going to get emotional, but he is a senior citizen, and he is going through cancer. While he was going through it, he got COVID, whole nightmare, diabetes. This is flooring this man. He had savings to retire comfortably. He can't retire comfortably anymore because all of his money is going into paying for his prescriptions, including insulin. And so I just say this because I'm hearing all these things, and I've talked to seniors face to face. The reason why they're facing these issues around housing and transportation is because their money is getting taken away from them on fixed incomes because their prescription prices are way, way too high. And I didn't hear it. I was kind of waiting to hear about it. But if there's something that could be done, especially during a pandemic where prices of everything have gone up, my dad's insulin has gone up every single month to where he's turning down his medication. And so if he turns down his medication, he inevitably is not going to be here anymore. And he already told us that. He said he's comfortable with leaving this earth because he can't afford to stay alive. So I think that if we could lift it up in the public health and wellness section or whatever other section, we do need to address it with these dollars because it's an immediate relief to some of the senior citizens in our state.
Great. Commissioner Teig, let's add that comment, please, to the health and wellness section. Very well said. And I know people look like they're wrapping up, but also may have a little bit more room. Is there one more? Is someone out there who just didn't have a chance to make a comment and the point has not been made by anyone this evening? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and head up to the mic, and if it's okay with everyone else, this will be the last comment. I promise. No, that's great. Thank you. I can feel it in the room. People were ready for one more.
So I don't think anybody will be able to jeer against maternal health here. So it's one thing I didn't hear. And certainly we heard, I'm here to represent the seniors of Southern Rhode Island, but I'm also the CEO. See, when someone argues against maternal health, you know that's a bad day. So I'm the CEO of the National Perinatal Information Center in Providence, Rhode Island. And I'm here to support the seniors of Southern Rhode Island, but I also think it's just as important to support the new moms and the newborns here in Rhode Island as well. New mothers in Rhode Island suffer from hypertension, postpartum hemorrhage at astronomically high rates. It's really important that we're able to support them. We want them to grow to be senior citizens, but they can't do that if we're losing them early on in the cause. So I would ask, sorry, this is an area of intense emotion for me, but please consider maternal health. I saw it listed once in there, and I was very disappointed to see it only listed once. I hope that it can rise to the priorities. Thank you.
Commissioner Tighe, let's take note of that as well. What a terrific session this evening. We are so grateful for your input. Let's put on the slide with the input form one last time, if we can scan to it. In any case, you can check us out at ri2030.com. The whole document, it is a draft. It's a living document. You can still send in comments beyond the session. Lieutenant Governor Matos, thank you for being with us every minute. Governor McKee and Lieutenant Governor Matos, thank you for creating this forum, and have a very safe and good evening. Appreciate your participation.